Hey y'all, I'm here with Gabby Aguilar from LPL Financial, and she was telling me a little information on how home ownership can affect your net worth. And there's some really interesting stuff going on, especially in the climate that we're in right now, and whether it makes sense or not in the long term to own a home. But yeah, thanks for coming today.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. What trends are you seeing throughout your career?
So in the financial services side of things, whenever you relate your home ownership and your net worth, a lot of the times whenever we do that net worth calculation, we don't include the primary home as the net worth, because a lot of the times you're still paying on it.
Right.
So it kind of negates that equity and the liability on the side of it. But then whenever you start paying down on your home and you get to where you're actually building the equity, that's the part that we kind of assess and add to your net worth. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time for you to see it into your net worth kind of thing.
For sure.
And a lot of people think that it's one of the biggest parts of your net worth, but in reality, it's not whenever we're looking at it in the financial side of things. And right now, we're not seeing a lot of people leverage the primary home. Whenever we're looking at home ownership and the net worth, it's on the investment side of things. Say they're buying properties and they're contracting property managers and they're using that as residual income. And then that's how they're building their net worth and they're building their wealth.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I have a lot of investors that, they leverage a lot. And they're throwing numbers out that are like, okay. Well, we'll see.
Yes, and a lot of the times what I see with especially the bigger investors that have multiple properties, yes, they're going to use their other properties to say as leverage for a loan for another property. And that's always an acceptable form, especially if you have already built equity in there.
Right.
And that extra property just adds to your net worth and just continues to grow. And then you pay down your debts, of course, and then it just all ties in.
Right. Yeah. So on average, on an amortization table, you're paying your interest up front. So the first 5-ish years, it's probably 80 to 90% interest.
Yes.
And then you see it slow down. And then you start actually paying the principal. I know I've heard a stat that if you pay 2 extra payments a year on your principal, it can save you like 5 years on your mortgage.
Yes, because a lot of the times what you're doing by implementing that method, say you're on a month-to-month term payment, and they do 2 payments instead of 1 in that month. So you're basically paying on just your principal at that point. Therefore, paying it off quicker. And so say you might have a term of 30 years, but by adding that extra payment, say at the beginning of the year or at the end of the year, you're cutting it down, say a couple of years at the end of the time. So you're building up your equity quicker because first you're putting it on a principal, and then second, you're paying it off quicker.
Right.
So therefore, your net worth is going to grow quicker as well.
Yep. And I know FHA has implemented higher lending limits for multifamily. So do you have a lot of people or anybody that, say, lives in half of a duplex and rents out the other one?
Now, I haven't had experience in this personally, but I have seen some investors starting to do that model, say a family, a brother and a sister, but they already have a family, and it's probably easier for them to buy this duplex and then eventually one of them move out and they do the same thing with another duplex, and then they bring in another family that's just bringing in extra income. But in my experience, I haven't dealt with it a lot, but I have heard of it starting to become more of a norm, especially with the prices that we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
It's more of that multifamily community type situation living. Yes.
Yeah, that's something we're seeing a lot more of, is intergenerational
community living styles.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's a great way to build wealth. The only thing to be careful of is whenever setting up a community living space where everybody's putting in, it's making sure it's set up correctly, where each individual interests are clearly defined, and
get an attorney.
Exactly. Exactly, because many times you see these friends, they start a community together, but they're not being talked about, hey, what could possibly happen if this friendship ends? And you see it all too often where the friendship ends, and what happens? Everything that they worked for is pretty much done and gone because of lawsuits and arguments that could have been just saved from setting it up correctly.
Yep. That's why I don't work with friends or family.
Very good rule of thumb. Very good rule of thumb.
Unless it's a short term, like, yeah, I'll help you out today, but no.
But not for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
it's a long time commitment.
I've seen marriages go down the drain. I've seen very good friendships lost over a miscommunication.
Absolutely.
And, nobody likes to be wrong and
or take responsibility.
Yeah. So, I think that was some good information. Do you have any other points you might want to make?
I think an important thing whenever you're looking to consider buying a house is really take a step back, and we talked briefly about this, is really setting up a budget. Looking at what you do have, what you can't afford, because a lot of the time what you see right now is people are living outside of their means.
Oh yeah.
Yes, buying a house is appealing. It gives you something to feel like you have ownership in. But at the end of the day, quite frankly, if you're not set up at that time to be able to afford that kind of investment, there's nothing wrong with renting either. Right. Especially, at one point, renting was a lot cheaper than buying. And if you have to rent for, say, a couple of years while you save up to be able to put a larger down payment, sometimes that's the option you might have to take. Yeah. Not only that, but you might not know what other options you have out there. I mean, talking to a realtor, they'll open up a lot of doors. Talking to somebody that can help you budget and really look at other outside options opens a lot of doors too, because you might be able to show them one thing, but some other professionals, like your tax professional, might be able to show you, hey, this is what it'll probably cost on this side. Can you also afford that? It's talking to the right people and finding out what you can do for yourself at that time.
For sure. That's why, like, anytime I have a buyer, I say, how much are you approved for? And they'll say this. I'm like, well, how much do you want to really spend? You need to get different payment scenarios for each price point. Yes. And I mean, general rule of thumb, $100,000 is $1,000 a month, just on very general. And that's with, between 6 to 8% interest ish. And that's about where we are now. So, a $200,000 house is going to cost you roughly $2,000 a month. Yep. And good luck finding a $200,000 house at this point.
Yes, absolutely. Not only that, but sometimes people think that buying a house is just as cold, cut and dry, but it's really not. It involves a lot. You need to look at house insurance, all of the other expenses that go into your house, because you may be approved for an amount and you may think, oh yeah, I could do that payment, but then you start adding everything else up. Yep. And then you start really sinking down in your seat and being like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
So
definitely be aware of what escrow is costing.
Yes.
Get your tax. I mean, CAD has tax information, and the tax assessor, they split recently, which I'm not a big fan of. But CAD used to be a one-stop shop and get everything. Now I have to go to different ones. Anyways, and then a good insurance person that can shop your rates every year.
Every year. People don't realize how much they could save by just reassessing your rates. It's a game changer once you start doing that.
Yep.
And it doesn't hurt anybody's feelings, honestly.
Yeah. I play this fun game like every 3 years. I'm like, no, on to the next one. And I'll just bounce between, or I used to before I got a house, but I've bounced between 3 carriers they always just reset to the minimum. Now the minimum now is a lot higher than it was.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. I mean,
everything is going up, and I don't think there's anything wrong with, especially in what we're seeing nowadays, is taking a step back and acknowledging that you may not know everything or you may not have a handle on everything, and it's okay to seek help.
Yeah.
It is perfectly fine to seek help, because sometimes you'll find deals that you may never know. Kind of like when you're going on a vacation, you can sit there and look at rates and everything. But what I found, quite frankly, a lot of the times when you go through a travel agent, they're going to get you the best deals. And then people are going to be like, how are you able to do all of that?
Yeah.
And it's about knowing who you can talk to.
My mom's a travel agent, and I swear once a month-ish, she calls me and is like, hey, you want to go on X cruise or X trip? It's only however much. It's a deal. I'm like, that is a deal.
It is.
But even a deal that I can't afford, I can't afford.
Yeah.
So, $5,000 to go to Alaska, it's a great deal. 7-day cruise. But I have other things.
Priorities,
I need
absolutely.
to. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think I appreciate what you have given me, the insight.
Anytime.
Yeah, for sure. We'll do this again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Y'all have a good day. We'll talk to y'all later. If you have any questions, just give me or Gabby a call. See ya.